Maidencreek Township Board of Supervisors for May 11, 2023. I'm going to ask everybody to rise to pledge the flag. And immediately after, May is Memorial Month for first responders. I'd like to ask you just to give a little bit of thought to the folks who gave their lives for us through the services they provide. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting this evening. Prior to our meeting at 6 o'clock, we held an executive session to discuss potential litigation and personnel. We're going to start off with approval of the meeting minutes for April 13th, 2023. Do I have one?
Yes, approval of the agenda.
Oh yeah, I guess we ought to do the agenda first. Can I have an approval to accept the agenda as is?
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the minutes for April 13th?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the treasurer's report and the bill list for April of 2023.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
We're going to move into the public comment. We're going to start at the front and move to the back. And at this point, the comments are going to be based on what's on the agenda right now. If there's anything that's added, we're going to allow you to speak at that point in time. Starting at row number 1. Anybody would like to speak? Row number 2.
I just have a question
Yes,
of
ma'am.
the supervisors. Since we're not allowed to ask anything about the warehouse, I'm assuming you're still under the gag order?
As long as the hearings are going on, we have to be the neutral parties for the hearing.
Okay, I understand that. But as a tax-paying resident of Maidencreek Township, I was wondering if, so that we can know how to vote or a little better to vote, would the people that are on the ballot answer a question about their education, where they went to either school, college, any other? Would that be all okay, so that we can have at least some kind of basis of who we're going to be voting for? Since the warehouse is the big thing for me, but obviously I can't ask anything about that.
Well, I have no problem answering your question. I have a bachelor's in chemical engineering and a master's in environmental engineering. We've been sued by the developer twice. I mean, that's public record. They claimed deemed approval. We are an intervener in the case on the deemed approval, so we are opposing the deemed approval application that was made.
Thank you. And Mr. Frank, I know you're not up for election, but if you're planning to run for election, if you want to.
I am not planning on running again. I give you my word of that. This is my second term, and I firmly believe that 2 terms is enough for anybody, especially 6-year terms.
Mr. Mayor?
I have an associate's degree in architecture from Met College, and I'm a civil designer, been doing it for 20 years.
And Mr. Baumann, since he's also running?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree from Penn State University in criminal justice with an emphasis in juvenile corrections. And for the past 40-ish years, I've been in the heating and air conditioning business. I'm currently installation department manager for the Longacre Company in Valley.
We are?
That's Ohio State.
Okay, anybody else in aisle number 2? Aisle number 3?
Robin Fink, 325 West Elm Tree Drive. Could you please hand this to Ms. Fiedler? Please keep your trash in your own yard.
Anybody else? Aisle 3? Aisle number 4?
So, Hunter, in terms of the Park Road Corridor project, I mean,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
in terms of the Park Road Corridor project.
That's not even on our list for today.
It is.
Is it? Oh, okay. So what is it that you wanted to ask us about? What's
Well, I don't even know what's, you're asking for public comment, I don't even know what's gonna be discussed, so I would like to hold my comment until we get to that.
And that's fine. Yep, that'll be fine. Okay, next. Next, in the back.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I received a flyer in the mail stating that
Mark that one out.
You wanna,
Josh was not voted in, but he was, because I was at that meeting when everybody approved them. So I don't know why I got that flyer in the mail saying he wasn't approved.
So he wasn't appointed.
He was appointed, he was not
He wasn't
Yeah.
elected.
okay.
No.
Do you have her name?
You have the name of that
What's your
person.
name, ma'am?
Mine?
Yeah,
Oh, Donna Bissinger.
okay,
I live at 8033 Allentown Pike,
okay.
where everybody drives by at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine, if you ever don't have a name, just let me know.
Yeah.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go on to reports, and Chief Kaiser is not here this evening, so I've been asked to just provide you with the activity report for the police, which we had a police commission meeting this past Monday. For calls of service in Maidencreek Township, we had 300. Citations issued for April, there were a total of 83 for Maidencreek Township, 54 traffic warnings. There were 96 vehicle contacts, 4 arrests in Maidencreek Township. There was a total cost for vehicle services of $634.44. They utilized a total of 927.86 gallons. The mileage for Maidencreek Township for last month was 4,421 miles. They provided 810.1 hours, and 27 of those were daytime hours. For crashes, there were 21 in Maidencreek Township, 12 were reportable, 7 non-reportable, and there were 2 hit and runs. Is there anybody that has any questions that I might be able to answer? I haven't done that in a long time.
That's shorter.
Yeah.
How do you go about, I gotta give my name, Deborah Ballings, I live on Golden Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you go about getting the police to come and patrol Golden Drive, which is a racetrack for DECA people?
Well, there's a new program that they're looking at that's going to show where they patrol, and you just have to call the office if there's a problem, and let them know what's up. They can't be everywhere all the time, naturally,
Right.
because we don't have one for every block, of course.
Right.
And I can tell you from my own personal experience, I spent 42 years as a police officer. Of those, 32 as a chief. So I know it's kind of hard to designate where you're going to send your officers at what time, but when people call in, it gives you an idea. So if you have a rough idea of the times that the problems are existing, please give the office a call, and that's going to help them to at least schedule.
A few years ago, I made a call, and they told me I have to talk to the chief, and I had to physically go to the building and talk to the chief. You go over there, you can't even get in, and so,
No, if you do call,
All right.
they'll talk to you.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll try that.
Yes, sir.
So, just curious, how many of those citations were for speeding thrown out on Allentown Pike near the roundabout?
Those aren't broken down that way.
Okay.
So I wouldn't even be able to tell you that.
Okay.
But there are traffic citations that are given throughout the township.
Okay.
So it could be stop signs, could be speeding, aggressive driving.
I wasn't sure because since they put the roundabout in, it's a thoroughfare, they go crazy through there.
And they've had a few accidents out there, so.
And there's people that don't yield too when you're in the roundabout, as I'm sure you experienced.
It's terrible.
Can we get a report
We'll
from?
bring it up after finish your business, I'll bring up a new business.
Okay.
Well, can we get a report from the police commission on the accident data for the roundabouts?
Yeah, I can ask them for it. As a matter of fact, if you want to leave a note for the chief, and just ask him to get hold of me, we can discuss the accident. I've asked at previous meetings, they can bring that up on Cody and more or less give it to us in a fairly quick order, but, you know, sometimes the accidents, if they're non-reportable, we're not even gonna know about them. Yes, sir.
In terms of the hit and run accidents, do you know if the perpetrators have been caught?
Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't.
So you don't have any specific knowledge?
I don't have any data on that at all here. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to the engineer.
Thank you. You have a copy of the report from the May 11th meeting. Subdivision review status checklist is attached as item number 1. Under that, there are 2 plans requiring extensions of time. Maidencreek Associates has granted the township a time extension through June 12, 23. Planning Commission recommended that the board accept that time extension.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
107, 109 West Westerner Road, the applicant has granted the township a time extension through August 28th, 23. And again, the Planning Commission has made a recommendation to the board to accept that time extension.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
I don't have any other action items, just updates. The Maidencreek Associates Warehouse preliminary plan, land development plan review letter dated May 1st was sent out to the Planning Commission and the boards and the applicant. The zoning code enforcement UCC report is attached. There were 19 permits issued for the month, and a whole host of inspections and other activities. The street contracts have been signed, and we'll be sending those out here very shortly and having the pre-construction meeting for contract A and B. So.
I did have a follow-up question for that, if I could just jump in there for a minute. On your May 1st review of the Maidencreek Associates preliminary land development plan, there were some comments on whether there was a requirement to secure the water and sewer agreement from the Maidencreek Authority. I wasn't sure if our solicitor had reviewed some of these for what the applicant was asserting, and as far as the reservation of that capacity.
20,000 gallons of water.
Right.
Well, the authority has granted or provided a will serve letter. So they're saying that they do have capacity to serve the warehouse.
And does that meet the requirement for the preliminary land development plan?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
And as for the road paving, do you have a rough guess of when you're going to?
It won't be before the last, we're going to kind of slow play it a little bit until school is out, so it won't be until the second half of June at the earliest.
Okay.
It could be July, running in August.
Okay, that way we can keep on track with UGI and everybody else. Thank you. Our solicitor report?
First thing that I have is ordinance number 255, which has been advertised for this evening. It is essentially replacing chapter 186, sections 4 through 12, I believe. 12 of the ordinance, which govern openings in streets and sidewalks. So street openings, excavations, pavement cuts, and works within rights-of-way. Hunter, Tom, and I have worked to bring this up to speed so that we can better control how it happens and the repair, replacement, and maintenance of roads thereafter, and ensure the utilities that are making these openings are paying their fair share, both for the replacement of the pavement or whatever, whatever's there, sidewalk, anything like that, and how it relates to how old, if it's a new road, they pay more, if it's an old road, they might pay less. So it kind of puts it on a scale, but it also makes sure that we are better protected than what our ordinance has now. I think it's been vetted pretty well amongst us, so I believe it is in a form ready to be adopted by the township, and it has been advertised as required by our code. So it's been on record here at the and at the newspaper for this meeting this evening.
And just for everybody's information, it's titled An Ordinance of the Township of Maidencreek, Berks County, Pennsylvania, amending the Code of Ordinances of the Township by amending and replacing Chapter 186, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 2, Street Openings, Excavations, Pavement Cuts, and Work Within Rights of Way. So this isn't something that's telling everybody they have to put a sidewalk in. This is for our vendors that are out there that have to come out and they dig holes, and this tells them what they've got to do and how they've got to repair them. So it's meant to protect us and you folks as well as you drive on the roads. Okay, do we have any discussion? We're ready to go?
Do we need to be officially in the hearing for this?
No.
No, okay. All right, no, I think it's a good idea, I like the part that there's a depreciated schedule for work when there is, cuts made into roads, that if they're older roads, that it's not the same cost to a vendor that it would be if it was a brand new road. So encouraging people not to tear up our new roads as we pave them.
It definitely needs to be reviewed and tightened up, and I think it definitely did that, so.
We had some issues, and this addressed them. So do I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 255 of 2023?
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
The only other thing, my monthly announcements on the warehouse, just to announce for everybody, the upcoming scheduled hearings are all at 6:30 at the Willow Creek Elementary School. The next one is May 30th, and we have hearings scheduled for June 6th, July 11th, and August 8th. With the litigation matters, we did have a hearing in front of the Berks County Court on the mandamus matter. We don't have an order in that yet, although we are expecting one in the very near future. On the deemed decision, that's where the applicants advertised that we did something wrong, and therefore they say that the penalty is that it's a deemed approval of their project. Neighbors did appeal that, and on behalf of the township, we did intervene in that case so that we can be a part of that and defend that our actions were correct. And our position is that everything was done correctly and the deemed approval was advertised inappropriately. So hopefully we'll get a decision on that one
And
as well.
claimed inappropriate.
Correct, exactly right. But they jumped the gun, so. But hopefully we'll hear on that one as well soon.
And you mentioned the July 11th, right?
July 11th, yeah, so four, just to be clear, May 30th, June 6th, July 11th, and August 8th. So that's where they're scheduled, so, and then we'll probably pick up in June, scheduling for September. I was hoping we'd be done with August 8th, but it doesn't look like it, so. That's all I have.
Okay. Move on to the manager.
So Park Road corridor project, this is kind of a new addition. On the 1st of April, the federal government released infrastructure grants that would be available to undertake major studies and major construction improvements to roadways. Any roadways within a locality, states are not eligible for this grant, it's just counties and municipalities. So in our case, a working group including myself, Tom, a member of the public, Chief Kaiser, and a member of the road crew, determined that the roadway that probably needed the most attention, that has not received any attention yet, would be Park Road. The reason being is because of the increasing amount of backup that Park Road receives from both Giorgio and DECA. And in addition to that, the safety problems that have been noted by crash data that the chief has made available or has available to him, and I know the Republican potential fatalities that could occur or have occurred in the past. So the purpose of this being on the agenda for this evening is to see whether the Board of Supervisors would like for us to continue to apply for that grant. The grant sizes are anywhere from $100,000 to $10 million for the study and design of a project. The actual construction grants themselves are worth $2.5 to $25 million. There is a 20% local match. That local match can be any combination of funds, but it must not be inclusive of federal money. So, in theory, if we got down the line, we had a good project, we could have the state pay for a portion, us pay for a portion, the county pay for a portion. In this case, to get it off the ground, what I would seek from the board is a decision about whether you want this to continue. We have until the 10th of July to apply successfully for the grant. It requires some votes that will happen by the board as well in the June meeting. And the cost to the township, we anticipate you should be thinking in your minds about $100,000. That is a large number, especially when we're looking at a lot of improvements for the streets in the road plan. With that being said, I believe that this is a good addition because this is probably one of the most dangerous streets we have. And to undertake this project and really set ourselves up for the future where either grant money from this program or grant money from another program are available. What that $500,000 would pay for the township's $100,000 if we were successful for the grant would be a comprehensive study and review of that corridor to try and recommend improvements. When we were dreaming about it, improvements to us looked like lighting improvements, potentially a traffic light, potentially turning lanes, pieces like this that would try to create more opportunity for people to be able to turn in some of these dangerous intersections and also reduce some of the backup that happens along Park Road and Main Street.
For that being a state road,
Yeah.
do you actually have any say?
So that's a great question. Because states are not eligible, many states, and PennDOT most recently did this project with the city of Allentown. They allowed the locality to apply on their behalf. And then they provide a letter certifying that we have permission to do that work. But they would join us in that project. Whether we'd be able to secure money in the front end, I am not confident that we can get that assurance by the time that we actually apply for the grant itself on July 10th or by July 10th. But in order to seek those monies later down the line, I think we at least need to be in contention. Whether that's money that comes from the county for that $100,000 or the state for that $100,000, or potentially that we're paying for it out of ARPA funds. That's basically the gist of it. I don't know if the board has any questions or if the public has any more questions for that.
Well, does PennDOT have any history of reimbursing this cost to apply for grants that would benefit a state road?
I don't think I've asked that question directly of the folks that I've talked to in Allentown.
And then has
So
any
I
other
don't
municipal?
know.
Okay, well, if you can check into that, and the other municipalities too, because Park Road goes through Richmond Township too.
Mm-hmm. So I have checked with the other municipalities. They're open to the conversation, but because we have the chunk of it and we would be leading the application, they're kind of waiting to hear back for what we do.
Would they be interested in contributing if we were to pursue this?
I think that would have to be part of it, especially if the study was going to be parts of Richmond Township, Fleetwood, and Onwani. But we have also the largest backup at Park Road.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but you're talking about the whole corridor, so it's not just
Sure,
a Maidencreek
sure.
Township issue, it's a Richmond
Yeah,
Township issue, Fleetwood.
and in theory, we could attach Rockland to that too and going to DECA, but I think this is why we wanted to look for it here, but we can try and answer those questions in the meantime. I think my concern is that this would probably be, and Heidi asked me to try and break this number down. It'd probably be 40 hours of my time is my guess between now and that July 10th application date. Probably 10 hours of time for Tom to do some support work for us. And then we'd also need to start getting quotes from folks, and they'd want to know that there's actual muscle behind the project.
I think what this is actually the federal government trying to bring everybody together to the table instead of just, here, I'll give you this grant money and this is good for your area. And then going, you know, they're looking for an overall project. This corridor is a feeder to Allentown. It's a feeder to Reading. And quite honestly, we all know how crazy it gets. Try pulling out from the post office sometime, especially during the DECA 500. You know, you're not able to do that. So, you know, somebody making a turn, they're taking their life in their hands. I think that PennDOT has already identified some of those intersections and has made conversation that they were gonna look at them for roundabouts, actually.
Oh, another one.
Yeah, so I think there are like 2 or 3 of them along Park Road that they're looking at. But quite honestly, you know, if they're not putting traffic lights in, that's our second best way to go, and would possibly alleviate some of the problems and some of the crashes. And you know, the roundabouts, although I know a lot of people don't like them, the crashes aren't as serious. So, you know, if we're saving lives, that's the whole identity of this project, saving lives. I'm in favor of the idea of looking at it, and even if we do the study and it doesn't get a whole lot of traction, we at least have the idea down that when PennDOT starts saying something, say, hey, you know, you came with us on this, you know, now we're looking for you to take up some responsibility as well, because it is your road. And that might help with further grants.
Was there a study ever done in previous years?
They've done traffic studies, but I don't know that there was ever a comprehensive plan.
I don't think, not to my knowledge.
But if you look back over the years, and I can tell you this from when I was a police officer in Fleetwood, Park Road was nothing. You could drive through here, 222 was 3 lanes and it was no problem. You might sit out there and watch traffic light at 222 and 662 for an hour and see 3 cars go by. Now you can sit there for 3 seconds and see 100 go by. So I think, you know, DECA has grown, Giorgio has grown, and there are businesses in between there that have really picked up the pace. So, you know, we're not in COVID time, so people are going back and forth to work now again. And it is difficult, so I think looking at ways to address the congestion is a step ahead for us.
So if I could just ask you a question, so you said PennDOT's looked at some of this already.
They've looked at it for the stop signs and things like that, traffic lights,
And you said the roundabout.
and they said roundabouts are gonna be their choice.
When I did talk with Derek Harriman, he's the traffic engineer, I think, lead for District 5. He said that they don't have anything scheduled at this time.
No.
For-
But it's on a 10-year tip, I believe.
I think that's the county one.
Yeah.
The county does have money set aside for Maidencreek for the intersection of Calcium and 73, but nothing again for Park Road.
Right.
Yeah.
But what they do is they put a plan together and want to look forward. So they're forward thinking, just not financially caught up.
Yeah, I think it's advantageous for the township to pursue that, because we all know, living in this township, that is our alternate route.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, we have the one back here near the cement mill, but that don't lend itself to convenience. So traffic's not getting better. I think you need to pursue it. That's just my opinion from the public.
It would be advantageous. I would be in favor. Yes,
I
ma'am.
just have Jamie Killich from Troxel Road. Do you have any input when the state comes and, you know, wants to put some type of roundabout in, and I'm not obviously saying that's what's happening. Is there any type of input from you as the board as to what type of roundabout is? Because there definitely is significance in the roundabouts that are in Berks County. Personally, I travel all of them quite frequently, and the one that's which isn't in our township, but in Ole, at the actual Ole fire area, 73 and 662, to me, that is the best designed roundabout.
Yeah.
Just thought process for forward thinking.
They came to us with these 2 roundabouts that they put on 222. However, we tried to fight them. And as a matter of fact, the people who put the warehouse up paid for our legal expenses to do that, because he thought that if he has a roundabout in there, it's not gonna work well with his mall that he was planning at the time. So we went to federal court, and the federal court said, no, it's up to PennDOT. So the only thing that we have any access to in that part is what do you put in the center of it? Now, the one thing I have to say about roundabouts is, you know, what makes them so confusing is every one of them's different. So you gotta learn how to drive in each one individually,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the roundabout, I just think that the one that is actually up at 662 and 73 and Ole is the easiest, quickest, and safest, just the way that they have it laid out. So just something to consider for possible future roundabouts, if it comes to that.
I'd like to see more signage, actually. I think signage is a big thing
Agreed.
to educate.
Well,
Agreed.
if we had the lead of the
Single lane,
project,
too.
we would get to
Yeah.
have
It is
our
single lane, 'cause of the
balance
turn.
on
Right.
what they
That's
think
nice.
about.
Yeah, they'll listen to what we have to say. It doesn't mean they'll implement, but they'll listen.
Right.
So, for whatever that does. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Donna Bissinger again. I had a thought about the sun blindness that happens in roundabouts. You could have artists create statues in there and that would block out the sun so that when you're going around the roundabout, it won't blind you. Because if you think about, like in France, they have, you know, statues that help. Even up at Valley Forge Park, they have a monument. And so it's just a thought. Statue, you know, I don't know, could be kind of like they have it in the city of Reading, water, you know, the river thing at the Social Security office. And artists would have a competition and, you know, and it would be a way for them to show their work and, you know,
I can
and
tell
it would
you
probably be free.
that PennDOT has a specification of what you can and can't put there because they want visibility issues to be of the primary concern.
Yeah, but if the sun is blinding you, nobody can see anything.
I know. Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the right time, but when I roundabout, I get the new business I bring up about these roundabouts is, that's why I ask you about the citations is, I live right behind CVS, and I can tell you what, it's horrendous, the amount of the Jake brakes are being used. I stood out in front of CVS for 10 minutes and it's just nonstop. I mean, you know, you don't mind it, so I'm thinking, and I don't know if we have the legalities here, but it's a state road, but there should be no Jake brakes in that area, residential area, number one. And number two, there should be citations. You know, you need signage, number one. There's not enough signage here. These truckers don't know what they're coming into. And they're, you know, just haphazard going through it. And we know about the accidents that, but I propose, you know, I don't know if I start a petition for PennDOT, but they need to put some for brake retarders. It's bad. It is horrible.
We're working on that.
It's
As
horrible.
a matter of fact.
It's done? We have approval?
No, it's ready, the report is ready to be submitted.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's good to know. but
It's already in the process.
It's horrible. And it's not 100 times worse.
My answer to that is this.
No,
Not every truck is manufactured with a Jake brake.
Report's on my desk.
So does that mean we can stop all truck traffic because the rest of them aren't safe? I'm just being somewhat facetious
I
here.
understand.
But the other trucks are able to slow down and stop and go through the roundabouts with no difficulties. So you don't need a Jake brake to get through the roundabout.
You need to enforce the speed limit, number one, that's it.
That's,
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no
you don't
truck.
enforce speed limits and slow the cars down. A truck driver like myself going through them
Can I
roundabouts,
jump in real
I use my Jake
Yeah.
brake.
Yeah, and I understand you using them. It preserves brakes too.
Yes.
But the problem is you're so close to are you an owner operator?
No. I
Okay,
work
so-
for Acme Markets.
Oh, okay, so when you use your brakes,
Mhm.
the company replaces them, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
Okay, but they're gonna stop just as well. I mean, you can stop with your brakes, okay? Just like all the other trucks that don't have a Jake brake have to. And that's the only thing that we're looking at. It's not a necessity,
Right.
so, you know, and it all depends. If you have a 1, 2, 3-stage brake, you know, it all depends on how much noise you have. There are some Jake brakes that don't make any noise.
And ours don't.
Well,
Yeah.
the signage that you have about
Don't
not
do
getting
sides.
next to the tractor trailer and the roundabout, it's
small?
too small.
I know.
It's too
Just
small.
big.
And that's not ours,
That's
that's
PennDOT.
PennDOT.
That needs
The
to be
thing of it is-
larger, I mean, I've seen people, and ever since the road's been paved there, from the jump handle thing or whatever you call it, all the way up to Redner's, ever since that's been paved, that's the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Well, the way the roundabouts are designed is the cement apron that's on the inside is for the trucks. okay, so that they will ride up on it.
Right.
Now, having been a truck driver and also a police officer who inspected trucks and things like that, so I did mix-up in my career, you get some trucks that have very fragile loads, that once they ride up on that, you're gonna break something in the back or whatever. So they may not have to, and they're gonna go over and ride the outside. But when they're riding the outside, the trailer is tailing into the center lane.
Right.
Because,
So stop
laws of
going around
nature.
it. Be patient.
yes, and that's the whole idea, don't go next to a truck that's in the roundabout. But we don't, as PennDOT does not educate that well with roundabouts.
Right.
They haven't yet. Maybe they'll pick it up along the line when they start seeing more accidents. But that's where we're at this point.
There's no truck, loaded or unloaded, can go through that roundabout at 40 mile an hour. End of story.
They're not supposed to. It's
Well, the
supposed to be
speed limit's
20.
40 mile an hour, that's why I
20
asked
to
you earlier about
25.
the speeding citations.
And the thing is, the speeds that they have there are recommended speeds. They're, I mean, when you have a regular speed limit sign, and then you have to give a certain amount over the speed limit before you can start enforcing. And that's by law, under Title 75. So if it says 55, for example, anywhere, okay, you're not gonna start writing the ticket at 56 or 60. As a matter of fact, if you're a local police officer, you gotta give 11 miles over the limit, except in a 55 zone, where you can go 6 over, or a school zone, or something like that. But the rest of the place, you're gonna give 11 miles. So why have that law saying you gotta do this speed limit then? It doesn't make sense when you're trying to keep things safe. So if you really wanna talk about safety, is that the whole mission of PennDOT? Or the mission of the law? I would argue that, but, you know, you still have to follow it. As a police officer, you enforce it, and you follow it that way. But drivers know this. They get out there and they're gonna step it up and go around. It's not right, but when you get into a crash, you're going too fast for the conditions of the road. That's another charge.
And your ticket starts at the posted speed limit.
Well, it doesn't
You
though,
don't
that's
get
the
leeway
problem.
for the 11.
Yeah,
Well, wait to see.
makes sense to me,
You
believe me.
some more wait to see.
Well,
Thank you.
can you give were you referring to the update of the?
No, I was gonna give a different update. The other update that I was gonna give is because we've been working with PennDOT more recently, they're actually going to pay for solar speed signs that have the flashing, like if you're
Right.
going too fast. We think that would be a little bit more effective than some of the regular signs. They're gonna pay for that for us and then give them back to us and also permit us to have them on 222, so there'll be 2 of them. Ideally, right now, the concept is that one will be in the northbound lane, one will be on the southbound lane at the other side. And then every so often, we'll go with that one. I was trying to say months, but it wasn't coming. We'll switch them and invert them so that they'll
Okay,
be
from
there
north to
as well.
south.
Yeah, and that's not a silver bullet. Not trying to suggest that, but that I think will help to work on some of these problems around here.
Catches people's attention anyhow.
Yeah.
And then Tom had an update about the chicken break.
It's finished on my desk, right, so the report to PennDOT will be submitted next week.
Good, thank you.
And that's the beginning of getting them to approve.
Right, it's a process.
Process, right.
So we haven't forgotten you all. Yes, sir.
You mentioned Calcium Road, and I was just curious, is there a long-term plan to repair or replace the bridge on Calcium Road?
It's a state bridge.
It's just, yeah, what originally was talked about was originally, we had discussed with them bringing it straight out to 73, okay, but that was before we realized that Allentown Cement still uses the railroad tracks. Okay, so I think that kind of changes the volume of how we go about it. That would be ideal if that would come straight out. It would be better for no trucks rubbing the cement bins off the bottom of their trailers as they're pulling out on 73 the wrong way. So there's all kind of things that they looked at, but until we know that we can do something there, well, we can't do it anyway, it's gonna be PennDOT. But that was one of the ideas that we were looking at and had mentioned to PennDOT a number of years ago. So it hasn't gained any traction.
Well, we do have an update, and Hunter can probably better update you on his conversation with Alan Piper. But if you remember back when we took over Schaefer Road Bridge, part of that negotiation was that the county would put the realignment of Calcium Road to Maidencreek Road, on there.
273.
Yeah, 273, what did I say?
Yeah, Maidencreek Road.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, yes. Calcium Road from Maidencreek to 73 would be realigned. So that,
At county expense.
At the county expense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is scheduled now undergo.
I believe it's 2026 is when they're gonna finalize everything, and then 2027 would be when construction begins. They have indicated some willingness to move that up. Among this project and others, we haven't started chirping on them too much, but that was about a month ago that he let me know. So I think the next RATS meeting where they talk about these things, I believe is in July.
Are they gonna do anything with the bridge or the railroad track, or?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so. I think that the philosophy would be that if they realign the intersection to 73, so it would not be a hard turn back.
Right.
That it would be safe, and then you wouldn't need to come in, you know, at two different
Dog leg.
Yeah.
And at an angle too, so your line of sight is so bad.
Yes.
Yeah. Would they put a traffic light up there then, or?
I have no idea.
That would.
Roundabout. Just kidding, just kidding.
Here we go.
Not to our knowledge. That
Okay.
wasn't.
You might wanna ask them about that, though. The roundabout, I think, would have the same disaster that it would at 73 and 222.
Yeah. There's another, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if, what we can do to keep pushing PennDOT for the left turn arrow and the turning lanes from 222 and 73.
We have to do the study ourselves.
Is that what they require?
They have said that they will not do it, and we would need to show them new data that they would find compelling to install.
He can show you his truck.
Yeah.
As far as I know, the light is all wired and it's adaptable.
That's my understanding as well.
It's absurd to me that they never did that from day one. It's
It was us as well.
Yeah.
You have to do a study on their road.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
We've argued that point with PennDOT ever since the projects began, am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I think that's more dangerous at this point than the roundabouts themselves are.
You're going across 3 lanes of traffic to make a turn when traffic's coming at you. You either have to go prematurely, or you have to go after light changes.
And even
Okay.
then, even then, I was not through.
Yeah, then the guy's running the red lights the other way.
And people are running the red light, so yeah.
Well, yellow means go faster.
Yeah, and red means maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Let's stay home now.
That is a
People are dangerous.
Actually, the best thing they did was, like at Park Road and 222, everything's red for like 10 seconds
Yeah.
for all the people that.
For all the cheaters.
And there are timelines on traffic lights too, under Title 67. Yeah. Any questions from the board?
Well, I would like to really see some commitment from the other municipalities towards this cost.
I don't know if the
Just
other
so
municipalities.
there's no confusion, Maidencreek's portion of the study is the Maidencreek corridor only. We're not extending, when
Oh,
we
so
say
we're not-
corridor,
yeah.
Okay.
we're not extending into other townships.
Township
So we
lines.
just
Just
look at
gonna
our part
include
and
ours.
that's it,
Yeah,
okay,
we're just
all right.
looking at, am I right, Harmon?
Yes.
So we're not gonna pay for anybody else's.
No, the hopefully is to get other people on board so that it can be extended,
Right.
but we're just looking at Maidencreek
So they would have to participate for their
for their portion.
municipality be included in the study? Okay,
Yes,
all
yes.
right.
So maybe we can communicate with the other with the other communities and PennDOT or whoever, and show the intent, we wanna work and do this all in one
Community
shot,
effort.
and maybe we can get a
I
whole
think
combined effort.
Hunter's on that.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. I would like to take that to a motion. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion that we at least study it, right? That's what this.
That's all about a study, yeah.
All right, I'll second.
All in agreement? Aye.
Consider a website upgrade. I don't think it's lost on anybody that our website has not been working. It has not been for a lack of effort of trying. What
We're
you
like
have.
6 weeks?
Yes.
Wow.
What you have before you tonight are 2 proposals, one from a company called Granicus, one from a company called Civic Plus, to redo our website. I believe that Civic Plus is less expensive. They have a more streamlined design service, and we would be able to have our new website by September. In the meantime, our current website, what I've communicated with the company who facilitates the control of it called Turbofy, that they've said that they will have it ready next week. I don't know if I believe them, but they've said next week.
What would be ready next week?
The website would begin
Our
working
current
again.
website.
Correct.
But this
Because,
has gone on for 6 weeks.
yeah,
Because I would seriously like to look at some alternatives, like have another
yeah.
similar site so that we could get people information about our agenda, our meeting minutes, and
So-
different things like that. Because this has really been a long time as it is. And
What you and I talked about earlier with the SharePoint, I think is the best solution. We're moving over to Office 365, which will give us access to SharePoint as a service, and then that would be our substitute website while we need one. The actual design of a website between now and then for the cost and for the time that would be involved, I don't believe is worth a full redesign.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not looking for a full, I mean, I like the idea of
Yeah.
getting a nice professional, user-friendly type website for the
Yeah.
township, but in the meantime, we don't have anything working.
Yeah.
I mean, for updates and things like that.
So the SharePoint would be the best way to do it because you can make it publicly accessible. Folks would be able to go there and grab all the documents.
Well, the other thing that we're faced with in the future is they're looking at changing the law to allow us to, instead of having to advertise in the newspaper and find a reputable paper to do that with, we could do it online, which will save us money, and right now we can't even do that.
Correct, yeah.
So we have to have a really good, reliable
Company.
hosting
Yeah.
company that
And this-
takes care of it.
This company is that. They cover approximately 80% through one government form of another of the US population, whether that's county management, local management, or a statewide website.
And who uses them locally?
South Heidelberg is the
That's
number
the
one
one,
that
okay.
I was,
They have a nice system.
I think so, yeah.
But when, on this proposal, though, so it shows the fee breakdown, but what would our total be?
Our total would be this one, so it's the 1,000 one-time fee for the integration of this work, and then the 5,170.
And then that covers,
Yeah,
These
these
are
are all
optional.
separate, these are all separate.
That's what I
At
was
this
asking.
time, I don't think any of them
so
would be
that's what we don't
appropriate.
need any of those.
Correct, correct, yeah.
All right, that's what
So it'd be $5,170 would be our legacy costs. Right now, we probably pay less than $1,000 a year for what we get. We're getting
Well, we
what
don't
pay
get
for.
you.
Better said.
It's not good.
And then you get technical support with that?
Yes, so anytime we add a new site or something along those lines, they would build that for us. Yeah. We would be able to update documents and things like that.
My
So-
question was along the same lines. Do you know what type of tier support you would have in regards to if you call and there's a problem? Are you #1 priority on their list, or are you number 55 on their list? You know,
Yeah.
that obviously comes at a premium, but 6 weeks of a website down also
Yeah.
costs in the long run.
It's not the same issue. So there's some type of software issue with the company that hosts the current website where all of their companies everywhere cannot update their website. This would be similar to what we have in terms of our IT support right now. So we call, they put a ticket in, and then they respond to it. For new design, that would be something that we work with them over. Aside from that, I understand, I think the premise of your question, which is that, are we going to be able to get things updated when we need them? And until we use the service, I can't promise anything, but based on how reputable the company is and how widespread they're used, I think I'm pretty confident to say that this is a good one to go with.
And recommendations from other townships that have been using them for years now.
I didn't personally seek out any, but I can get them if you would like me to.
So you would be able to put items into the system. It wouldn't have to be one of their people at a cost.
Correct.
So,
Like the page is gonna get structured by their company.
Yeah.
And then he can add it.
And you
with,
update
the
it
overall,
as needed.
right.
I mean, like I said, I looked over it pretty good, but just looking at it now, you know, it's 24/7 technical support, free monthly training webinars. You know, they actually, I looked at it pretty close, it's a pretty solid company, so I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of scalability in the future as well with some of those services.
It says up to 150 pages of content migration. That's a significant amount for,
I don't know.
We don't have that many.
we're not gonna need
We're
that.
gonna use that right away. Okay.
I'll make a motion. that
Okay.
we, do you need the full authorization of the 5,170 or just the
No,
$1,000?
just a contract with them.
Okay. Need a
And
motion
you're gonna sign that?
I can sign that, yeah.
Okay. So, to authorize Hunter to sign it.
It's a contract with Civic Plus for a new municipal website.
Yes.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
And you say by September?
Yes, yeah.
They did.
Consideration of bank account restructuring. This is a method that, in light of a potential recession, potential bank failures, and also the opportunity to achieve higher interest rates, what I'm recommending is that all of the township's money above the regular balances we need for our checking accounts, that's payroll and general fund checking, would be moved to Pliget, which we already have an account with. Their interest rates are much higher than we get with any of our other banks, and that we close our other accounts and move just the checking for payroll and our general fund and escrow funds to Tompkins Vista Bank.
And what's the current interest rate with Pliget?
It's hovering between 3 and 4%. It changes on a month-to-month basis. The reason that it changes is because their portfolio is made up of very secure government-permitted assets. For folks in the audience too, Pliget is not a bank that anybody from the public could access. It's only for municipalities or for other government agencies. And because of that, they're able to look at the state law for what's permitted to be invested in, which includes like municipal bonds at a certain grade, different things along those lines, that most large banks will not do unless it's a customized portfolio and you have a significant amount of capital. So you're talking about, you'd only get an interest from Wells Fargo or Tompkins if you sold your wastewater treatment plant for $50 million. That's only when they would start creating a portfolio just for you. This is a statewide portfolio that's for any of these government officials, and we get the benefit from having about $1 million+ in the bank with them. It'd actually be more like 1.4, I think, $1.4 million.
And they manage money for a lot of municipalities in Pennsylvania.
Yes, yeah. The company that actually runs it is the staple nationwide for all of the public bond and public financial management. It's actually called Public Financial Management with them, but they are the #1 bond issuer in the country.
Yes.
Are they insured the same as big banks? What is the insurance? How does that work with this particular?
So they are
institution?
insured through FDIC. The difference is that all of their assets are collateralized because the state requires all of their assets that they're invested in to be collateralized. So they're all backed by real estate or some type of actual fixed asset. So that way it's more secure. And this is also what the state exclusively allows municipalities to invest in.
So we're going to switch to one bank, if I'm understanding this. Well, two banks.
Yeah, Pliget
Okay.
and Tompkins.
And Tompkins.
Yeah.
Okay, and Tompkins is, we're going to have a pretty huge amount in there over the
It's gonna hover.
250,000 FDIC.
Yeah, between 250 and 500, depending on how bills look for that month.
And it covers all losses if anything were to happen. at
Well, the
Tompkins.
250 does. Where we get into issues is usually our outlays in a month are 300+ grand. So we need more than 250 in the bank.
Right, but if we're going to put all our money in that bank, is it going to be one account with numerous breakdowns? Or, and the reason I'm asking that is because if we're putting $1 million in there, let's say,
Yeah.
and the bank folds and our whole million goes away, if we had 250 in this bank, 250 in this bank, 250 in this bank, it would all be secured.
Correct.
Is the bank going to give us a security letter because that issue does arise?
Of collateralization,
Right.
Tompkins will.
Tompkins,
And
yeah.
Pliget gives one annually.
Right, I'm not worried about Pliget because
Yeah.
they're not really a bank.
Yeah, we'll make it one of the conditions that we sign with Tompkins that they give us an annual collateralized statement.
For our entire balances.
Right.
That's correct, yeah.
Or up to a certain dollar amount.
For everything.
But,
Right.
I mean, I think we need to specify like up to $1 million or something, just so that we're covered, just in case there happens to be an extra, amount of money deposited. I think you gotta have a
Well,
dollar amount.
Are you saying a dollar amount that the township maintains there, or that
No, that
Tompkins provides a statement for?
Tompkins
Security.
provides security collateralization for, so in case you deposit, say, $500,000
Yeah.
into an account because, for whatever reason, then that money is collateralized and protected.
So
It's
they-
probably $250.
They would, I'm only familiar with them collateralizing, and you may have more experience with this than I do, but I'm only familiar with them collateralizing for your entire account, not for a number.
I wanted to ask that, why, if I recall correctly, there's a reason there's I thought there was 5 different banks that
Yeah.
monies were put in.
So around the time of the Great Recession, the board at the time, I think, diversified their portfolio to protect from the FDIC insurance standards, protect the township's amounts through FDIC coverage insurance. And that has kind of lasted for until then.
But we're looking at some financial future that is very unstable, I fear.
Yeah.
So I sure would hate to have to come back to all these people and say, hey, listen, we gotta dig into your pockets, where you don't have any extra money like we don't now as well.
Well, and that's why the state has created these very limited investment options, so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think to Dave's point here is that the 3 banks that just recently failed, that dollar amount of that failure is bigger than the value of the banks that failed in 2008. So we're already exceeding the bank failures of 2008, which was a big problem. I don't have an issue with, I just want to make sure that a bank like, because we're talking about like Tompkins Bank or other banks,
Well,
that's completely protected.
What you could do is make a statement or a policy that says you, Hunter, will never allow the balance to be above 750 for more than 30 days, let's say. So then we're moving all of our assets beyond that number so that we have cash flow to pay for all of our monthly bills. And then you're not maintaining a too large of a balance that you run into an issue that you can't transfer it out quickly enough.
You're saying the 750 at Pliggett or the 750 at Tompkins?
Tompkins. You can set a number. I just fear setting something too low because the amount of transfers back and forth, I think, cause issues.
Well, I'm just gonna say, I know we have, the 5 or 6 banks now. I think that's probably excessive for the balances that are kept at some of them. I don't think we need 6 banks. I'm a little concerned that the Tompkins issue, that I don't wanna see us go above an insured rate just accidentally, and we're in a very uncertain, we're in a very uncertain time right now.
Well, that's how it works now. So we have one general fund checking account that I've tried to maintain the balance so that we can pay for our monthly bills and then some. Our monthly bills, like I said, is about $330. So what I'm trying to keep in balance is about $60,000 after we've paid the monthly bills. So just rough numbers, 400,000. When we get any type of transfers from EIT or if we get a large check for real estate taxes, we exceed that number already. So our current practice is not different than what you're describing right now. I think this change makes sure that we're regularly transferring, that money for better interest rates into Pliggett, but also that we're maintaining a balance in Tompkins to pay for all of our bills. And there's reasons I'm picking Tompkins, but you could pick any bank.
No, I think Tompkins is a strong bank. I don't have any issues with them specifically. The only issue that I'm seeing is that what our max balance might be above and beyond what is insured, or that we have some kind of collateralization on. And I know Pliggett is very secure with additional collateralization to protect that, so it's not about Pliggett. It's about which banks we use locally.
Well, what would be a number that you'd want to keep the balance at and that we'd want to have collateralization?
Well, I mean.
250,000 for FDIC.
250 basically is the number.
We can't.
Unless we can get some, I know some banks will give additional
If they give-
collateralization.
right.
That was the
Let me
other
interject here,
question.
because 250 is the FDIC, that's a no.
Yes.
There's nothing preventing you from moving all your money to this Tompkins and open up 4 accounts. Where you have a checking and maybe 3 savings at 250, 250, 250.
Doesn't work your way.
All you gotta do is.
It's per institution.
But the FDIC
It's
does
not per account, it's per institution.
owner.
Yeah.
That's correct.
It's per owner. The only difference will be is if you have multiple owners. So you could have, say, like husband and wife on one account, that would be 250, and then you can have the wife have her account, that would be 250.
Okay.
That's where it's different.
I would make sure it's FDIC, I would not gamble that.
So the other option we have is to have additional collateralization from the bank that covers our township, and that's the thing that we're asking
There are
for.
banks that work together that will cross collateralize.
We
so that
use
the
my
two-
name as a ghost name.
250 turns into 500, banks share it.
Right.
So-
Well, I can
Can you research that, and then we can get the answer.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah.
I don't want to risk our money that way. I think that's something that came up.
Especially right now.
Yeah, we're just in too unstable territory right now.
Do you want me to move to the next item?
Yes.
So consideration of hiring a part-time township clerk. This would be a benefit to the township for the number of summer projects we have. I think it would be beneficial. We have a candidate, doesn't have to be that person, but I think it would just be helpful to the office to be able to accomplish all of these tasks this summer that we have, and I've outlined some of them for the board, including grant applications, working on some of our 5-year budget projection, capital improvement plan, all of the overview and oversight of potential projects through Comcast, through UGI, through a third company that's indicated their interest. And it would assist Christina being able to manage some of the financial issues that she's involved in per our auditor's recommendations. And I think it would just be a benefit right now. I think we have need for a part-time regular position annually, but this summer I think with what we've kind of identified as some of our objectives, it would be very helpful to have another set of hands. This was also a position that had previously existed for a former employee.
So it's like a summer internship at this point? Is that what you're suggesting?
Have we looked into interns for internships?
So the person that's identified is a high school grad from Fleetwood. Internships are something that I'm open to. I don't have any objection. This person would be the lead on our website development. As a digital native, I think that this person, would really be helpful with that as their big project for the summer on top of all the things they would do on a daily basis. I think, Heidi, you asked a question that I'm not recalling. Was it seasonal or? Oh, an intern. Yes. It would not be termed as an internship. It wouldn't be for academic credit. It would be paid at the union.
Well, I'm using that term loosely, more like for the summer.
Yeah.
Like summer slang.
Yeah. Well, the technical title for the position would be township clerk seasonal.
Is this a union position then?
It would be a union position. For the summer, though, they will not achieve tenure, so the position will not really affect the bargaining unit.
Is there opposition to doing an internship, like a paid intern?
No, but to line up somebody at this point for college credit, we don't have the time. Because the semesters for most colleges are already ending, so, yeah. And we wouldn't want anybody who's not 18.
Of course. I think it needs to be somebody who's got some experience and some general background in this.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Well, the person that we have in mind has work experience. I can give you his resume, but both Christine and I met him and I had a phone conversation with him, and I thought it was just beneficial, and it came at a unique point, and on top of the projects that we're looking at adding on, and that we've already got in the fire, I think this would be really helpful.
Can you forward those resumes to the board then? Or his resume in this particular case?
Yeah.
Okay.
When were you looking at starting?
When he graduates.
Okay, in June.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is something we could look at in June.
If there's not a position open, I think it's kind of hard for him, because then potentially you guys could choose not to open a position. You would still have the final authority to hire at the June meeting, but I think creating the position and authorizing me to do interviews, and if you guys have other people that you think would be eligible, whether they're teachers that are not working during the summer or something like that, and they would want to have a part-time job or something like that. Not to suggest that teachers don't need their break, because I know that they do, but.
But some do work during the summer.
Yep, yeah.
Have you calculated this out as far as cost-wise? Like, is this budgetary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So the projects that we have with Comcast especially will more than pay for this position. In addition to that, there is an employee who has savings on their benefits because they're no longer taking benefits with the township. That also makes room in the budget for more than this cost will be.
Well, summertime is normally vacation time, so, you're gonna be shorthanded, so I think bringing somebody in part-time is gonna be a benefit. Gives you the seamless follow-through with these.
Yeah.
especially with Comcast and
I totally agree. Heidi, you're suggesting though that this person have some background. If you're looking for a serious professional background, I don't think we're gonna be able to find somebody for the summer other than a teacher. And I think one of their immediate questions will be is, will this position continue past the summer? So that's what I was kind of trying to avoid, is committing us to that. And I think you get that with a student. But if you're looking for somebody with more professional background, they're probably gonna wanna know that they have a job past August, basically.
I was looking for some proficiency in some of these areas, is what I
Yeah.
was kind of getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got back up there, so you said beyond, what did you say, beyond August?
Yes.
What are you looking for a term here, like season?
This would be June to August, just the summer. I guess the summer goes into September, but,
your professionals are gonna take it, look for a job and leave.
yeah.
So I don't see that being anything long-term, and it might not even last through the term that you want.
Yeah.
So, plus I'm sure we're not gonna be paying what they're looking for.
What's the dollar?
The dollar amount would be the union rate for a
Yeah.
clerk.
It would be seasonal, part-time,
Yeah.
is the actual designation.
It's just seasonal, just seasonal.
Oh, seasonal, okay.
Yeah.
Because it says part-time clerk on your agenda.
Yeah, well, yes. I misunderstood the way that you were asking that, because in my mind, when you add part-time and seasonal together next to each other, that I think is confusing, but I see what you're saying now, and now I realize that I made it more confusing.
Well, because they mean different things, and
Yeah, this person would not be here 5 days a week.
How many hours are you looking at?
I think 3 to 4.
3 to 4 hours?
No, 3 to
Days.
4 days a week,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
How many hours?
So that would be 18 to 24, or 16 to 24.
Yeah, so keep it.
I can't even do that, that's so bad.
Do you have a
It's
calculator?
24 to 32.
Okay.
Not to exceed 32 hours.
And that
You know,
person,
if there's a vacation week, it might not be bad to have them, but the average that I wanted to be at was,
but if they go over a certain amount of hours, doesn't that make them
That's what I
full-time
was
based on
saying.
union contract?
their position term will end in August. So
They won't even get here.
they could get overtime if they work the 41st hour, but you know, they wouldn't be eligible for benefits anyways under the current contract.
Well, what's everybody think?
I mean, I don't have a problem with the concept, you know, to expedite some of the office issues that you're working through.
Well, somebody's gonna need to be here also to be a point person for the whole web
Yeah.
direction.
And that's
So-
why I think somebody who's a digital native and, you know, who's taking coursework about some of this stuff and knows what looks nice is gonna be advantageous. Yeah.
Do we have to amend the budget for this at all?
No, it's not beyond the
Yeah.
10.
I think we
It's a
had,
small dollar.
As I say, Comcast wasn't figured into that budget.
Comcast doesn't need to be included in the budget either. if that's
No,
what
no, but I'm
you're
saying, you were saying that that money that Comcast would be paying us would offset the cost.
Permit fees.
The fees.
But also the benefits that are not.
Sure,
going to
sure,
be.
sure, but,
But it's, so you only have to amend the budget when it's a 10% change.
right.
This probably isn't above 1%.
Yeah, certainly if part-time seasonal for the summer, I mean, that's certainly.
My guess is it might be 0.03%.
But you'll calculate.
okay. Any comments?
No, but I do agree with Heidi, I want to see the resume.
Right, you're not committing funds, this is a good thing today.
Yeah, we're just
Start the process.
starting the process.
You won't find the right person, you won't hire anybody, you're not gonna
Yeah.
change the
I got
budget, so.
Yeah, and I would want to do a formal interview process regardless.
So do I have a motion just for the concept of bringing somebody in part-time?
In the preliminary work,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll make that motion.
Do you want it to be advertised anywhere, like on LinkedIn or anything like that?
I wouldn't put it on our website.
I walked into that one.
I'll second it.
All agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you guys want it on LinkedIn, or do you just want to do word of mouth for right now?
For something part-time, you can do word of mouth.
Okay.
And when the website does come back up, put it on there.
Okay.
Yeah, if.
Well, yeah, the new one, we're the new
Expected
one.
learned.
So consideration of multi-municipal hosting at lawn site. This is coming back off the previous conversation we had, I believe, in March about hosting this for other municipalities to use.
How do the other municipalities feel about paying for that service?
Both Richmond Township and Fleetwood Borough, who have both indicated formally that they want to participate, are willing to pay. I've given Fleetwood Borough the figure of 20% and the Richmond Township 15%. And
Of what number?
So
You say
I need
20%.
I need to pull actually up the presentation.
You're gonna crash it.
I hope.
It's possible.
Is that attached to the website? We have it here somewhere.
So this is the new approximate cost with the updated figures from the Zwicky company. Let me share my screen so that folks online can see. Oh, you know, let me we're gonna turn the video off real quick just because it speeds up our processing.
Told you.
Yeah, it's gonna be easier once we do that.
It looks like you broke it down based on the population.
Yes, and let me move this. Okay. So the range is between about 35 grand to 40,500. That range is due to variation of hours, really, for how many hours the guys actually have to spend there. And that cost is updated with what Dave Zwicky has provided as our cost for the actual collection of the containers themselves.
Now, you have costs here for a 30-yard can and 40-yard can. Are they consistent with what they give us?
Yes. We normally get the 30. Yeah, we're normally getting the 30.
So is that going to be enough to handle 3 municipalities?
No. We believe so, yes.
Not this past week, but a little over a week ago, it was all the way up to the gate. And it was just from us, so you have people coming in and it's up to the gate, guess where they're gonna dump?
Outside.
They're not gonna keep it, you're gonna end up with piles outside.
Yeah, I think we need a redesign before we open it up.
I was gonna make a suggestion, actually, when we were talking about this tonight, and I don't know if you wanna look into it, and I have said it to you. We have right outside here, there's a chain that goes across to the grass. Would it be beneficial to run like a stone lane over to the pad, or maybe someday pave it, but a stone lane over the pad, you come in this direction.
One way in,
Go
one way
in,
out.
you can pull up, back right in, because people are complaining about trailers and stuff, because it's tight. And then you can just go straight up to 73 and out, so we would have the in and the out. Because it's also very hard to see the entrance, so we have the 2 yellow fiberglass poles there, but it's very hard to see when you're coming, especially when you're in a truck and it drops off, you try to see where the edge of the road is. And
Where would the entrance be?
there's a chain that goes across, like straight out
Right
this,
over here.
yeah, and then just run a lane right along the back edge of the parking lot here, straight shot to the pad. They could pull up in there, and like I said, do their backing or whatever they gotta do, and then go out on the 73. There's already a curb cut there.
Yeah, I know where you're at now. I just wanted to make sure you weren't going through the parking lot.
Oh, no.
I would be happy to review it and look at it with Keith. Yeah.
Just think it would help improve kind of the flow going in and out.
We do have stormwater that comes across there that we have to account for. That's the only, so we have to make sure that whatever stone we put in there
Right.
can handle.
Permeate through.
Yeah.
That's why I suggest this stone. I mean, it kind of, these guys have kind of probably complained about mowing, but you could do that stabilized stone too.
Something.
Yeah, yeah.
There's another comment.
Yes, sir.
There's also an issue specifically when you're getting out of there, making the right-hand turn.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a hole there.
Oh, yeah. Every time I try to pull out,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter. You spin.
Last week, I gave Christina a particular license plate number. I was concerned about whether that particular party was legitimate in dumping.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, good.
I looked.
Well, let me ask you a question. Right now, we have the paving machine. would it benefit us to put a runway pad in there? And is that something that we could do fairly?
I'd be happy to discuss it with Keith and look at it with Keith, yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think one thing I just want to say is that with that, you are signing yourself up for more costs to actually get the materials out there and lay blacktop, if that's what you want to do.
I think he's just talking about like.
Right at the
just
place
a-
where
just
the
an
problem
apron
comes
coming
out.
off.
Just at the swale, I think he's saying,
Yeah.
pave across there where the
Just
swale is
a
running.
little bit of an apron there.
Okay.
So you're not, because we're gonna constantly.
I don't want
move
anybody
stuff.
spinning and end up getting slammed.
And that's
as
what's
it's
gonna
coming
happen.
out.
That's what's gonna happen, because it's just,
Pretty muddy.
Would that at all be within PennDOT's right of way there?
No, it's gonna be it's down off the road.
Okay.
I'm talking about, right
Oh,
off the shoulder, I'm talking about.
No, we can pave up to the cartway
Okay.
without getting the HOV.
Yeah, I think just putting a little bit of a
Yeah.
asphalt apron in there would.
Going back to the fact that you wanna add more municipalities, this gentleman says it's full. So you add more municipalities, I'm like, there's no room. I haven't been over to it yet,
Yeah, neither have I.
but we have our trailer full, we haven't been over, but
Well, the other thing, that's why I was saying about the bigger can there. And, because if we're gonna offer a service and charge them for it, we're gonna have to be able to meet the need. It's not that we're gonna be able to say, oh,
You're gonna have to have somebody there on weekends with a front end loader to.
Yeah, I'm not so sure we're looking to go into that, but
Keith, do you want to add anything from your perspective?
Yeah, the big problem is the weekends. Because what we try to do is we try to have an empty can there for the weekends. But unfortunately, with no one there to load it up, you
Yeah.
get that big buildup of brush. So when Monday, we load it up, and then they bring the can. So it's the weekends and the problem of the buildup that you guys see there.
and that's when most people are gonna use it though.
Correct, absolutely.
Do they have ones with a door that they can leave open that people could, I mean, people probably won't, but they could
That would
take
be a
their
good
stuff
question
in?
to ask. That would be something to ask, yeah.
And that might be a concern of Zawicki's because they put the stuff in, these guys put the stuff in, they see what's going in it. So that there's nothing they have to
Oh, okay.
siphon through.
That's been pretty clean, right? I mean, I know the gate's been open, but have we had issues with people dumping other stuff other than?
We had one wood pressure treatment.
Yes, we've had found some stuff that's not supposed to be there.
And where we at with the camera system?
We're scheduled for cameras.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes,
two.
Yeah.
It's, with it being just Maidencreek, people are gonna take care of it because it's our municipality.
Right.
You get Richmond, whatever, in Maidencreek Township, who gives, you know, they're not gonna care as much as the residents do.
Well, and I think we can probably put a codifier on it saying if there is an incident, they're gonna be surcharged
Yeah.
for additional,
And which we have for everybody at this point.
right.
Yeah.
What is the benefit for Maidencreek to open it to two other areas?
We get two benefits. The cost offsetting for what it actually costs us to run the service. In addition to that, we would also be getting all of their recyclable material credited to the township, which helps us in grant applications annually to the state.
and you still need a key pass to get in?
Yes. Yeah. Their key passes would actually be different too. So we'd be able to tell if somebody was a Fleetwood Borough resident or somebody was a Richmond Township resident.
The one thing that I would, really have to emphasize is no commercial from these other municipalities.
Yeah.
Now, would they be bringing municipal
No.
clippings and all?
No municipal clippings, just residents.
Just residents?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no way that with the size of what we have over there now can handle a total of 3 times or 2 times more than what's being collected now. We're opening ourselves up to problems. You've got too many people from the other communities that would come over and utilize it, where it's just not big enough.
What do those communities do now?
They don't have any services like this.
Because you can burn in Richmond Township. can't burn in Maidencreek.
Well, and part of the objective for having the service is also to recycle these things. So, you know, if they burn it, they can't recycle it.
We're mandated under recycling because of the size municipality we are. We don't have a choice.
In fairness to her point, neither Fleetwood or Richmond are mandated, but
Right.
Fleetwood's a little bit of a different case because they can't regularly burn like somebody in Richmond Township could.
Right.
So I think what I'm hearing from you guys is the urgency is around some of the site improvements that we've talked about. So Keith, Tom, and I can brainstorm about some of those using the materials we have available now, as well as the machinery we have available now.
That's a more immediate need.
Yeah. Do you want to reevaluate this next month after those things have been completed, or just say to these guys, we can't do it for this year?
Well, I think if we evaluate through the next 4 weeks what the capacities are and get an idea, because people mow their grass every week. So that might give some ideas. Yes?
This site is new, and
Yes.
I personally haven't been there, but I've heard from others, to what Keith was also saying, it's weekend. We haven't even gotten into the
Heavy season.
busiest of that time frame. Not that I'm on board, but I would highly recommend that we give it through this summer and reconsider this for next year. I don't think we know what we're necessarily getting into, being it's a new site for us. We're already hearing concerns from the community that the weekends it's built up. I think we need to test this out for ourselves before we throw in Fleetwood and Richmond into that mix.
Or we need to grow the facility, and I'm not
Or
so
that,
sure we
yeah.
wanna.
Which it kind of already sounds like we may need to do that just for
us.
let alone 2 other areas.
Are we gonna issue key cards for this?
They are being issued.
Are being issued?
Yeah, you can
come pick them up.
Yeah, okay. If we had a website, you could.
Is that 2-letter word?
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Are you allergic to the website word?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess maybe I sort of agree with the lady back there, because once a key card issue, you collect data, how many people, traffic's going in and out, and what capacity, and then you can make a determination.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that we want to turn them down at this point, we just want to say, we need to gather information. We need to evaluate.
When's the gate gonna
Fine-tune the
work?
system and
Yeah.
see, make sure it's working.
We aren't sure what we're doing yet.
The gate works now. We have not closed it because we want to give people time to come in and get a key card, because here's my fear, Mike. We're gonna close the gate one Saturday or one Friday, let's say.
And it won't open.
And we will, no, it will open, and we've tested it. But we'll come in Monday and we'll have 50 messages and say, who the F thought that it was a good idea to close this gate? Like, I didn't have time to get my card. So
And
that's what we're
everybody's
trying to
stuff's gonna
avoid.
be laying outside.
Oh.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean that. I didn't know if it was the same company that had the
No.
website.
No.
I didn't know.
Same electric provider.
No, but I've actually said that the last time too, was when we talked about this. I think we need to give it a year to digest and see what's going on before we go and start parties in. I'm not opposed to it if we can handle it. If we can handle it, then fine, but it's a revenue stream at that point. But otherwise, right now, we gotta know.
We're
if we can-
unsure.
Yeah, we gotta know.
I will let both of them know that we can resume the conversation sometime next year after we have more data.
Right. Sounds good to me.
Josh, do you want to talk at all about the audit? 'Cause I really haven't looked at it. I've been throwing this water back at it. It's catching up.
We have the Herdvine audit results.
Yes.
Is what you're referring to.
We have a clean bill of health. The biggest recommendation that they made is an internal staff one, that I split out the reconciliation duties with Christina. We've started to do that. So what we're doing is letters on top of our general fund reconciliation for all the funds, saying that they've all been reconciled. She agrees with my calculations, I agree with my own calculations, et cetera, so that there are 2 ayes, and that fulfills their recommendation. The reason that change was happening was because we were jumping in during the transition, and we just needed to get it done more than anything else.
I think it's a good idea, and I also noticed that they were, made some journal entries and adjusted accounts for how you were recording certain
Yeah.
dollar amounts.
Like the police refund was one of those examples, how we had put that into a revenue account, and they said, based on best accounting principles, I guess, they're recommending that
GAAP.
it count.
Generally accepted accounting principles.
I don't know if theirs were GAAP. I think that they were accounting principles, like CPA, professional accounting
Well,
principles.
GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles, which CPAs use.
Maybe I'm thinking of government.
So that, like,
GASB is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so these would just be general accounting
Yes.
procedures. I'm not an accountant, but they have certain ways of handling things, and that's like what you're talking about with the police
Yeah.
commission refund. They-
Yeah.
That should be in a certain type of account versus
Yes.
the other numbered accounts. So I saw that was a number of journal entries they were suggesting that moving forward, you count for it in one account as opposed to different ones.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think there was also one with our long-term payroll liabilities as well.
Yeah,
I
there were a
think,
number of them.
unemployment for state insurance or something like that. But it is a clean bill of health. There's nothing missing. Aside from that, they did make one other comment in there that I think is important about budgeting. I think that that's important, and basically what they were saying was you have to be careful when you're budgeting not to speculate that you will use your entire fund balance. They're recommending that we budget based on what we intend to spend, not what we have to spend.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a difference we'll have to make for this next budget year in
But you
fire
can't
tax
carry
fund.
over, an excessive amount. In other words, they want you to be equal all the way through.
Yeah, the second class,
So-
wait, you can't carry over an excessive amount
Well,
versus.
If you have budgeted items at 1.5 million,
Sure.
okay,
Yeah.
we can't show a profit, we can't show anything like that. We're supposed to equalize, is my understanding of it.
No, so,
That's, yeah, that's not.
I think I see what you're saying, but we can have a surplus in any given year. Second class township code does have a requirement. It's more of a prudential requirement, I think, truthfully, that says that we can't maintain a fund balance above a certain threshold.
Right.
What municipalities do is when you do have that fund balance, aside from considering like lowering taxes or something along those lines, especially when you get large developments into smaller municipalities and then your base grows by a significant portion, you set that money in a reserve account, and it's a reserve fund. So government uses fund-based accounting where business used just check debits and credits. So for funds, you're self-containing money in one fund for this, one fund for that, one fund for this. So we have, I believe, 6 funds: recreation, state liquid fuels, fire tax, general, escrows, and then I guess payroll account is not a separate fund, but we look at it separately. What they allow us to do though is create like a capital improvement fund.
Right.
Or
which is
capital
then-
projects, yeah. If
We've gotta have
other
money
yeah,
designated.
Townships do that, so you
Yeah.
would keep money in there with knowing that it's there, but you probably or typically don't spend that down to zero,
Yes.
right?
And then it's not a slush fund, it's not a slush fund,
Yeah, you can't
there's no
have-
slush fund
that's what
here.
We have plenty of capital.
The other type of fund is a business fund or a proprietary fund, it's a more technical term. That's where you can make profit as a organization. So let's say we were so successful in our Parks and Rec programs that annually we had a operating profit. You can make a profit similar to how businesses do, but there's strict rules and IRS standards around how those funds are set up and what they can actually be used for. But you can have fees for services as a government entity. Parks and Rec is probably the best example. Like Exeter Township, they have the Reading Country Club. They have a country club fund. So that's a really terrible name when I say it out loud. That sounds like a slush fund.
There's a lot of slushing going on.
But I don't think they're making a profit over there, so they probably don't really have a slush fund.
Yeah, and
Pretty tough to
yeah.
swallow.
And that's also like how where do you apply debt? So like if we owned, I'm trying to think of a good example. If we owned our own water treatment plant and it wasn't with the authority, so we had a water fund. All of the debt for the wastewater treatment plant would be based against that water fund, but not against the township's general fund. Or we could have the bond be with the general fund, but that be transferred then over to the wastewater, or the water treatment fund.
So it dries up in the other one, right?
Yeah. I liked that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So we need a motion to accept the
The,
2022 township audit done by Irvine, and I'll make that motion with the understanding we also implement the recommendations on reconciliation and other journal entries.
Yeah, I got no problem, I'll second it.
all in agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've got two resolutions, 21-2023 and 22-2023, to apply for grants through Department of Community Economic Development.
Yeah, we basically need the board's permission for a resolution to actually apply for the grants. So each one of these is for a different grant. One is for the West Walnut Tree banks, stream banks for the Willow Creek, West Walnut Tree Bridge, I should say. Those banks right there by the Willow Creek. And then the other one is for the comprehensive Parks and Recreation grant that would, that we've also already applied for with DCNR. So this one is the application to DCED so that we don't have to pay any of that cost, if we're successful with both.
Okay, so we'll go to the first one for the West Walnut Tree Bridge, 21-20.
This is just for the stream bridge, or just
For the bridge.
Oh,
No, this is for the stream improvements to
At the
level.
bridge.
Yes,
At
at
the
the
bridge. At the bridge.
Yeah.
Phase one, at the bridge.
Yeah, because it's so severely eroded, well, you're familiar with that, but there's a lot of damage already done when we're on the risk of.
I thought we were already done with the bridge stuff as far as grants. Okay, all right, that's why I was
We
questioning.
got turned down the first time.
That's
Yeah.
right, that's
Yeah, we
right,
didn't
that's
get
right,
it.
I got you.
So this is the reapplication.
So I have a motion
I'll make that motion.
For which one?
West
for
Walnut Tree
phase,
Bridge,
phase one of the
So that's,
Resolution 22.
yeah.
21-23.
So
That's the West Walnut Tree.
21-23 is the comprehensive park and rec one.
Right.
Resolution 22 is the
West.
Willow Creek Stream Restoration Project.
Okay, so let's start with the Willow Creek Walnut Tree Bridge.
You're gonna pass them out of order?
Well, that's
Why not?
resolution number 22.
That's what we
gotta
just got done talking about.
Well, why don't, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 21-2023 on
The comprehensive park and
which
rec.
designates the township manager as official responsible for the signature of an agreement to be a party in such agreement with the Commonwealth Financing Authority for the Maidencreek Township Comprehensive Recreation Park and Open Space and Greenways Plan for the amount of $47,493.
Do I have a second?
I'll second
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye. Now we'll go on to 22-23, which we talked about first.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we adopt resolution 22-2023 resolution, so that we can apply for the Willow Creek Stream Restoration Project and a grant from the Commonwealth Financing Authority in the amount of $47,493.
Do I have a second?
Give me a second.
You want a second?
Give me a second,
I know this is exactly for the same
You
dollar amount.
guys are both asking for a second at the same time.
He wants a second to have a
That's what threw me
second.
off, right? The dollar amounts what threw me off, but.
Yeah, they're exactly the same.
Yeah, is that true?
Is that
That's
accurate?
what
That's
I
why-
thought I heard. I'm like,
That's
I
why
know,
stopped.
that's what I read.
Yeah.
They're both, which is unusual.
That's why I stopped, that's why I said I need a second.
So the Willow Creek one doesn't require a dollar amount, so I must have left that in there from the 21. So I can redraft it and just cut the amount.
Then I'll amend my motion
Yeah.
so that it does not include a dollar.
So the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program, that costs 85% of that is the $47,493.
Okay.
The cost factor for the Willow Creek, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I don't think our estimate had changed really that much from the previous year. Is that fair, Tom?
Correct.
Okay.
So this is just going to the grant, giving you permission to sign for that.
Yes, this is just permission to apply for the grant
grant.
itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to turn this over in terms of the paperwork application. So
Yeah.
all of the other pieces that still need to be completed need to have this
Approval.
authorization so that I can sign the agreement and the
Right.
grant application.
And you'll update us with the dollar amount.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
It's very,
You made the motion?
it's very loose as far as limits.
And I
though.
amended it so that it did not include a dollar
In
amount.
terms
Phase
of,
one.
It's only for the
There's
grant,
nothing
though.
in there indicating.
well, it's just the same application that we did last time. Yeah.
So it's a duplication from last year.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
I do not.
Okay, I do. Yes, sir.
Now that all this is over, can this low-head dam thing be discussed?
That's what I'm gonna discuss right now. Okay. Mr. Solicitor.
Got one for Tom?
I do, as a matter of fact. You want to leave you out?
Thank you.
Okay, the following is a summarization of the facts that pertain to the questions and information about a low-head dam that resides on the property of Maidencreek Township, adjacent to the addressed property of 432 East Western Road, Blandon, Berks County, Pennsylvania. The waterway involved is known and herein identified as Willow Creek. The creek herein has been the subject of meetings and conversations, as well as studies and enhancements, maintenance, and concern of flooding for many years. Many board discussions have been initiated to discuss flooding issues facing residents along the creek, and the resulting discussions led to engineering studies and inter-investigative measures with Berks County Conservation District and Pennsylvania DEP. Previous meetings led to projects to address issues downstream, and supervisors have stated in the past that should grants be available, we would seek out remedies that may help the upper levels of the creek. But the downstream issues present more of an immediate and endangering issue to homes, and that the flooding which was seen in the past could be best addressed by resolving the issues downstream first. Below are the historical facts of the past few years which bring this concern to the forefront. These were assembled by the board chair based on publicly available information from a right to know request in March. Conversations with staff, professionals, and consultation with legal counsel. 1, in April 2022, Supervisor Heidi Fiedler, who was at the time chair of the Board of Supervisors, held an on-site inspection meeting with engineer Chuck Hass of System Design Engineering, the township's designated engineer. 2, at that meeting, Ms. Fiedler and Mr. Hass, along with other participants, were reviewing the creek area adjacent to her property and extending downstream to Blandon Meadows Parkway Bridge. 3, during that meeting, Ms. Fiedler requested Mr. Hess provide her with information and suggestions which could be used in addressing remedial action that would be needed to fix issues that were observed with a low-head dam adjacent to her property on township property. 4, this low-head dam functions solely to feed the pond at 432 East Western Road, and this dam was constructed before the 1970s and precedes the issues being addressed today. Mr. Hess evaluated and identified structural issues and water seepage issues with the dam. He identified these in his memo. These suggestions were not meant to be exhaustive in detail, and the scope of work and staff direction was not provided in any form. Ms. Fiedler only requested this verbally. After that meeting on April 5th, 2022, Mr. Hess provided the information to Ms. Fiedler on April 7th, 2022. In that email, Mr. Hess asked if Ms. Fiedler would like the memo included in the engineer's report for action for the next board meeting, and Ms. Fiedler did not request that addition. Number 8, that evening, April 7th, 2022, the Board of Supervisors elected a new chair and vice chair of the Board of Supervisors. In addition, that summer, the township hired a new township manager and township secretary. None of those individuals were aware of these events. At number 9, at some point in August 2022, Ms. Fiedler discussed this matter with Hunter Ahrens, the new township manager, and asked that this work be scheduled. Mr. Ahrens was not aware of the preceding events or history at that time. Number 10, in September of 2022, Ms. Fiedler raised the scheduling of that work again with Mr. Ahrens. Mr. Ahrens responded that the work was scheduled for November. Number 11, in October of 2022, Mr. Ahrens included a brief reference to the project in a productivity report to the board, but the context of the project was not detailed in that reference. Number 12, in November of 2022, The road crew conducted the work included in the memo outlined by Mr. Hass at the orders of Ms. Fiedler and Manager Ahrens. Number 13, Ms. Fiedler indicated to Mr. Ahrens shortly thereafter that she believed that not enough stone was laid at the location to prevent seepage. Number 14, Mr. Ahrens had the road crew return to the site and add additional stones. 15, no further work was conducted after that in November of 2022. 16, the board learned in greater detail what had occurred with these projects in March of 2023. The first of their awareness of the completion of any project and expenses on the Slowhead Dam. Number 17, after reviewing these events and discussing them with the relevant staff, consultants, and our solicitor, the board concludes the following. A, as a tenured member of the Board of Supervisors, Ms. Fiedler should have made the board aware of her desire for this work to be conducted. This was true because she knows that individual board members have no more legal authority to direct consultants or staff to take on projects than any member of the public. It is only the board working in concert with one another that staff or consultants are directed to do work. B, Ms. Fiedler also should have been aware that this project specifically presents, at the very least, a perceived conflict of interest, as the dam is feeding a feature of her property and sits adjacent to her property and adds no other purpose than diverting creek flow, of which she solely benefits. C, to make clear the position of the township staff and professionals, as well as the Berks County Conservation District, is that this dam serves no environmental improvements purposes. However, its existence is also not seen by the BCCD as a current inhibiting natural flow as the stream has adapted. Excuse me. D, the cost of this project can be calculated multiple ways. We believe that the manager was within his authority to schedule the work, as the materials being procured did not expect to exceed a $2,000 spending limit. E, in this finding, we also recognize that Mr. Ahrens was unfamiliar with the context of this project being requested and that the work was scheduled within the first 3 months of his being at Maidencreek Township. We believe this was still a large transition period for the office, the road crew, which had lost an employee and was preparing to hire another full-time member, and the dozens of tasks that needed to be completed since the departure of Diane Hollenbach as the former township manager. F, the required permits for this work should have been secured before the work was conducted, and Ms. Fiedler, who claims her educational background to include environmental engineering, should have been acutely aware of this need from DEP. Ms. Fiedler said that this is maintenance work and does not require permits. The seeking of guidance for this work would have brought the answer with clarity by those who are keenly aware. I am confident that there was no purposeful ignoring of permits needed for this project by our staff. Nonetheless, they were required by law, and our engineer should have been consulted for guidance as to their necessity. G, here we find that while Systems Design Engineering is the firm we rely on for this work, they were not given the complete information necessary to know that this project was in any state other than conceptual. Thus, the normal guidance they supply was not included. The extent information was available to the township's engineers was their initial contact with Ms. Fiedler in April of 2022. That was the extent of their knowledge and communications regarding the project until March of 2023, when it was brought back to the forefront because of public scrutiny. H, here the most logical connecting point for Mr. Ahrens, Mr. Hess, or Mr. Unger would have been for Ms. Fiedler to carbon copy them in all emails and communique, to request a meeting and to bring the issue up on a board agenda at a monthly meeting. None of this was done as would have been normal procedure. I, Ms. Fiedler has taken actions like this in the past, and she has been told in the past that she maintains no individual power, and the board makes clear to each other, the staff consultants, members of the public, current or future candidates for these offices, and any others, that this is a board of 3. That means that the action not previously taken requires the board's consent, and the expense of public funds for this degree requires a vote. An individual member of the board cannot give this sole consent. That is exactly what happened here. J, going forward, we are asking all supervisors to respect their elected roles and not attempt to circumvent the rest of the board. I am asking that our staff and consultants make the township manager aware that he makes me or Solicitor Fry aware of situations where any supervisor attempts to have work done that is not approved or does not serve their immediate role as township supervisor. Number 18. In conclusion, The actions of Ms. Fiedler, who professed her experience as a township supervisor for years, her training and her actions here were wrong, were in violation of law, and must be addressed to never happen again. The Berks County Conservation District has intervened to try and buffer the issue with DEP. The costs have far exceeded the $2,000 anticipated limit, and additional labor and requirements to remediate the damage done for one person to solely decide an action and expense of the township, and I believe all with intent after taking advantage of so many individuals and their lack of knowledge, with trust in her honesty and integrity, which she betrayed. This can never happen again. The result of all this must still come to conclusion with regard to cost and expenses rendered by all parties, but this report finalizes the investigation of finding of facts as they are known at this time. At this time, I'm going to make a motion that we forward these findings to State Ethics Commission for an advisory opinion, which is non-binding recommendation of their findings as to whether there were any violations of the Ethics Act here, and that we also forward this to PSATS, which is the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, General Counsel, for their opinion about any further action that is warranted from their perspective as well.
All right, well, I have a response to this, Frank. As you well know, this is a township wellhead dam on township property. As you stated, I don't know, did you write all of this?
I did.
Okay, you took it upon yourself to write this whole, do this in summary and investigation into this whole issue? Okay, because you also go on to rants politically on Facebook, and you obviously endorse both of my opponents.
I do.
And you go back and forth, and you go and you attack me personally about all different types of issues. You know, this is divisive, and it's not accurate at all. Because, first of all, we're talking about township property. We're talking about a township dam, a small low-head dam that's quite on a stream that the township owns. The township actually owns both sides of the banks of this stream that travels through my farm. And as you're aware, and as you read there, our township engineer was looking at the situation that we have with this dam. The side of this dam was actually leaking water onto township property. And part of the problem is that we have a lot of erosion sedimentation. We had our township engineer look at it. Again, we're talking about township property. And he was asked to identify the type of work that needs to be done, basically some regrading and putting some stone down. I personally relied on the township engineer to identify if there's any permits or that sort of thing that's needed to do this work. I wasn't aware of any, but we hire professionals in those fields to take care of those issues. It's disappointing that you would take it upon yourself to go into a political diatribe here, because there's a lot of political implications here that are to the benefit of the people that you've endorsed for this board. Now, just let me finish. You just went on for about 5 minutes with all of this. So, while obviously this has a lot of political motivation behind it, it's disappointing that you would take your role as chairman and to accuse me of violating the law, when in fact we had our township engineer look at this and apparently missed that there's wetlands involved, where our township staff traveled over to get to the stream. Again, this is township property that we're talking about. This is not my property. Furthermore, this stream, while it has a low-head dam, there's people that fish on this low-head dam, because the state stocks trout in Willow Creek, and there's a number of people that fish that section. I've also been told that basically because this low-head dam's been in existence probably for at least 70 years or more, I don't know, it's longer than since I've been around, it actually helps stabilize the stream, because we do have a lot of downstream flooding, a lot of erosion. You made allegations before.
That's absolutely not true, because I spoke with
No, just let me finish.
I spoke with Dean myself, and that is absolutely not true.
So, this is, you did something that is relatively minor, because what we're actually talking about, let me finish. It's not, it's, what you're talking about is township infrastructure that was starting to have erosion and seepage around it, and simply maintaining it so that it didn't continue to erode, and it didn't continue to cause more sedimentation and erosion downstream. You've made other allegations that there's water that floods when we have heavy rain events, and some of this water goes into my fields. It certainly does. The biggest problem is that there's people that have homes along the Willow Creek. Some of my neighbors, where their entire property sometimes floods from the flooding that occurs when we have heavy rain events. That's I would say, the biggest problem, when somebody's entire house is entirely within water, and they have to have some pump that continue on for 24/7. No,
What does that have to do with anything?
We'll let her finish.
I have the floor.
Yep, she has the floor.
Yeah, because, you know, you've taken upon yourself to personally attack me on something like this for political benefit. I mean, there's a couple other issues out here. You know, again, we rely on a township engineer to give us guidance on what work needs to be done. You're calling it a conflict of interest. I'm talking about infrastructure that's existed, that the township's actually owned since at least the 1990s. When a developer bought what used to be a 500-acre farm and subdivided different parcels and then turned over the stream back to the
You know an
to the
awful lot about
township.
that, but you didn't know you had wetlands on your property. I did a right to know on your stuff too.
I'm not talking about wetlands
Oh,
on my
I did a right
property.
to know on everything you
I'm
got.
talking about wetlands on the township property, which is the subject of
And you know that
some
that
of the-
dam was put in there illegally back in the 70s. Somebody else did it, not blaming you for that.
Let
It
me
was
finish.
solely put in there
Let me
for your
finish,
pond.
Mr. Mayor.
So the township doesn't technically own it, because I guarantee the
township
township doesn't have a
actually-
permit for it.
The township owns, I
Works
mean, I asked.
Conservation
just-
District knows
just-
it doesn't even
just stop.
exist. How
Just
much
stop
more
for a
lies
minute.
do you want to put
I
out
asked
here?
Mr. Aaron's to do a property search, and we identified that the corner property, which
Maybe
is
you should
about
do a right to know in your folder.
about 2.4 acres, is owned by the township, along with this Lowhead Dam, along with this whole section of the stream that goes from the corner of East Western Road and travels all the way down towards a bridge that actually exists on my property. So,
Did you pull a permit for that concrete you put on top of that bridge too? Do we have a permit for that? Can I do a right to know on that?
Mr.
Oh, no. I know you did it. That bridge has been redone, and I witnessed it. You gonna deny
What?
that?
I'm
Did
gonna tell you right
Did you get a
now. I'm gonna
permit to
tell
put
you right
concrete on your
now.
bridge from DEP? Mr. Engineer, do we need a permit for something like that?
Yeah, you do.
I don't know the work that was done, Josh.
She
I
added
can tell
tons
you-
of concrete to that bridge.
Now, what you're saying is absolutely untrue.
Oh, it is not. Lynn.
Because
It is not. It is not.
I
I
had a
can take a poll from all the
contractor
neighbors.
reseal the top of my roof.
Really, with the concrete
Reseal
truck
it.
in there? And he had about, that's what concrete on top of the concrete that was there?
Now,
Oh, bull.
what, now,
Did you pull a permit for it?
I'm gonna tell you right now.
Did you pull a permit for it? Yes or no?
When I had concrete work previously
No.
done that did not
That's a
involve
no.
my bridge.
That's a no.
I had sidewalk replaced in front of my house.
Did you pull a permit for that too?
It's within
You
my
just keep
farm.
digging.
It's
You want a
within
shovel?
my farm, that's all that I have.
You want a shovel?
No,
Well,
I
listen,
mean,
before we get,
no,
you know.
no, this is
No,
really
I'm
the
seconding the
problem.
motion that you
Yes.
made in there, so we can submit
this-
this to PSATs.
Procedurally, I need to stop the motions because it's not on the agenda. We can do it, but we have to amend the agenda first. So there
Okay.
would have to be so if you could just.
Make a motion to-
Revoke those two of your motions. I didn't jump in because it wasn't.
Get it approved.
Um,
I would like to amend the agenda to add the information that I provided and to be able to send by the
The board never
approval
approved any of it. Why is she not responsible?
to
Why are you talking? You're
Pennsylvania
talking.
Commission, to PSATs and the Ethics Board.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
All,
I will not vote on that. I will abstain from voting on that.
okay, all in agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
And I have other things to
Two
say.
for the, it's 2-0.
No.
2-1,
Yeah.
2-0 and 1. She
Yeah.
abstained.
yeah.
And I think that this is
Well,
also.
no, wait,
political.
I can second
No.
his motion, because we just amended the agenda, so I'm gonna second his motion that we send this to PSATs and to the State Ethics Board for violations listed in this document.
I already abstained on this. Now, I have some other things to say about this, and I'm not done because we still have the floor. This is a total effort to obfuscate the fact that you have ethics violations, Mr.
This doesn't have anything to do with that.
That's not on the agenda.
We are about
I am
$8,000 into this project now.
It's not $8,000, you're talking about.
Tell me I'm gonna
No
pay
more
it
than
back.
that.
So we gotta do
Pay
a
it back.
hospital study at
Pay it back.
$3,000. So,
Behind the millions, she already owes
Yeah.
other people, we'll never see
And the
it.
problem here is that this is all politically motivated.
No, it's not.
You have ethics violations.
Let me ask you-
Just
a silly
The
question.
Conservation District said that it was in.
it's a, yeah, you needed permits.
You wanna see my right to know? I'll send you my right to know
Did
stuff.
not tell us.
Yeah.
Come on, you guys agreed to that, you
Did
should
not
have known
advise
that.
all this stuff.
Okay, if I call Keith up tomorrow and ask him to come pave my driveway, or the road in front of my house, without it coming through this board.
Heidi does it, it's fine,
Had the
it's
road
fine.
wants
in
East
front of
Western
your house
paved.
about 5 years ago, if that's approximately. Landon Avenue was redone. There's a beautiful job in front of your.
You were the first one to announce your credentials, and should have known better. You could touch any stream without DEP approval. You first one said, you said my credentials are, I'm an environmental engineer.
Engineering covers many major fields.
That's
My
right.
background is chemistry with irrigation.
Well, then you
It
should
covers
have,
a lot,
you
and we
should
did
have done what
contact,
you did.
I'm just gonna clarify this one more time, we did talk to the township engineer, who does do permitting for our township. They're involved with all types of things, and this was never relayed to us on that.
I think this is very,
Let
very.
me, let me
This is
just
really
add
an
this as
important
part of my
part of this.
investigation, which was in here, that Ms. Fiedler was asked, do you want us to add this to the agenda? And there was no response to that. So in order for an engineer to act, he needs approval of the board. Am I correct, Ms. Stronger? You act at the behest of the board.
General terms, yes.
Okay. So if in fact you were going to do a job of this nature, would you inform the board that permits were needed?
Can I add before Tom answers that? As much as Tom or anybody at SD is responsible, it's my responsibility to bring them into these projects. So I take.
No, and I don't want
I
to do
take-
this.
And we're
well,
not-
I-
we're not
I
even-
appreciate that, but, you know, they work day in and day out to get this stuff done for us. I don't want it to be, you know, only somebody's fault.
No,
When.
we're not blaming them.
No, it's a very unfair
No, you're
statement
trying
that
to
she's
blame, you're
pushing it
trying to
on
blame
them.
it on me.
Sure.
There's a
Yeah,
communication
sure.
to our manager, and I would have to say,
There's a
at
trail of
best,
documents.
at
A
best,
trail.
that may, you know, that there was miscommunication here in a number of different ways.
And there was no
But this is being
miscommunication there.
done
There was
for
ill
political
intent there,
purposes on
and you
this.
did. You were told
Yeah, we
before.
know. You did it for political
before.
Infrastructure. This
You
is
were told
township
before you couldn't
infrastructure.
do it, and then you waited
I
till it
was
fell
not.
apart and you did
Did it.
it. That's BS.
No, that's
That is
absolutely not
BS.
true.
You got rid of Diane
Okay.
because Diane told you no.
No, this is all.
And then you didn't tell me yes, and then you had it done, and there were no permits. That's what the whole thing came down to. We almost could sweat our way through this with DEP. Now, thank God for the Berks County Conservation District. They're covering our tails on this and working with us to rectify the situation. But it comes at a cost. Your tax dollars.
That's right.
Right. And this is also a major effort because you're trying to divert attention from the issues with the, yes, you are. You're in this campaign from your own ethics violations.
Your
Mr.
ethics
Mack.
violations, I
This is
saw
ethics
yours.
We saw yours.
violation.
Let's listen.
And no, you know what, then you call an end to this meeting because this meeting's out of control and it's for
I'm gonna
political purposes only.
give him an opportunity to speak like
And
I
I
gave
guess our
you one.
solicitor to step in here because this is really getting.
Oh, no, no.
Josh,
You're being
you
attacked against
have
the
your
law.
opportunity to speak and then we'll get to the public.
Find your corner, Heidi.
Go ahead.
Yeah. You want to address the ethics violation that I got? That you sent, by the way. I know where it came from. I just want everybody here, I feel like I don't have to have this conversation, but I'm going to put it out here. I was raised in Fleetwood to probably middle, low-class family where I attended kindergarten through 12th grade. We lived in the south side of Fleetwood. I walked to school with my friends, and it was a community that I enjoyed growing up in. I went to college in Williamsport, and I drove home every weekend to work and to see my now wife. I just want to point out that this community environment that I grew up in is the reason I stayed here and decided to grow my family here. I'm from the area. I'm the local guy. Good or bad, after high school, we settled down here in Blandon and saw that this was a community that I wanted to stay with. My wife wasn't from the area, and I convinced her to stay here to raise our family. After working in the area, actually I worked in Valley Forge for a while, and I decided that we were gonna stay here. I found a job closer to home so I could stay in this area. I got more involved with my community. I became the Fleetwood Area Baseball Association's vice president for 3 years. I coached baseball for 5 years. I've gotten to know a lot of kids in this community and a lot of their parents. I find it very disheartening that I have to have smear campaigns sent out about, because I didn't list that I work for Mesa Associates out there, that kids in the community that I coach potentially get this mail, see this, and come in and say, you know what, why is Coach Josh such a bad guy? So I've never once asked what any of the kids that I coach, what their parents are registered as, because I don't care. I'm here as a community member, I'm here as a friend, as a family member. I'm not in this for the politics like other people are. I get $83 a month as a supervisor. It doesn't even cover the cost of diesel fuel to run around where I do. So I sit back and I watch slowly of all the stuff that was going on from the point that you got involved with Northern Berks and starting with everything being torn apart. That's why I got in this community, because I couldn't stand what you were doing to this community. I'm not a politician. Then you went after you went after Berks PD, then you went after our manager Diane. And I knew that at that point I had to step in because people my age don't get involved in this community. So I got involved, and the polls showed that. I only lost by 8 votes to Joe. As far as this elected versus re-elect stuff, I looked it up. Under the terminology and the definition, I am covered 100% legally. That's why when I was called by Berks County Courthouse about a complaint that my signs were not correct, I called other attorney friends and made sure that I didn't have to change it, and they said no. As far as the ethics violation, I got a letter in the mail on Monday after I got my son's baseball card, or his baseball pictures at the front door. I go to the mailbox and I have a letter from the elections board in Harrisburg. And in that letter it said that if I don't fill out this violation, there was no penalties under crime or anything like that. They actually sent me the form in the mail and said, please fill this out. That's it. So I called them and I said, what do I need to do? I'm off script now at this point. I said, what do I need to do? So I filled it out, sent it in based on what they told me to do. And I said, I don't know why I have to submit this to the state. It goes to the courthouse and it goes to the township. And that's what I provided it with. And they said, well, you need to fill out a new one here. It's an original form. I said, okay, fine. I'll do whatever I need to comply. So I filled this whole thing out. Within 7 minutes, I got another letter or another email back saying, I'm in violation again. I said, well, what for? They said, well, you didn't list at the township on here that you earn over $1,300 a month. I said, I don't. I make, before taxes come out, it's $1,200 a year. Okay, you don't need to have that on your form. So after going through it with the lady a second time on the phone, after the first time I was told I was in compliance, second time I filled it out, and I'm 100% in compliance with the state. There is no act of any kind of punishment whatsoever, so the spewing of lies that are being put out there is ridiculous. And I'm done with it, I'm over it. I know I signed up to be into this as a township supervisor, as a leader in the community, and I'm sorry, I got way more friends in this community than you do.
All right, well, I'm gonna address some of the issues that you bring up. One is with, no, I'm gonna address this with Northern Berks.
I'm not asking.
I know this.
A question?
No,
He has the floor.
here.
No, you don't. You don't. I said I'm gonna have him speak, and then we'll go to the
Just a
floor.
question for a solicitor. With some of the stuff she's saying with the warehouse and everything, does that put the taxpayers in jeopardy of any lawsuits or?
It does not. Depending on what a supervisor position they would take publicly, an applicant, and I don't know what position she's taken, so I don't know the statements you're talking about, or anybody has, but my advice is not take a position publicly, because an applicant could say, you've taken a case against the warehouse, or the neighbors could say, you've taken a case for the warehouse. And either party could say, you can't vote because now you're conflicted out. So that's why, it's not a gag order, but I have instructed, so you can comment all you want, you can't ask questions back and forth. What I've advised the supervisor to do is not take a position publicly.
And for the record, I did not take a position publicly on the conditional use
What
hearing.
about Mr. Baumann, since he is not a supervisor, can he take a position publicly?
He should not, because if this decision's not made yet, by the time, if he would win the election in November and the decision comes in December, he may have to vote on this decision. So he should not also come out that way.
Is there an existing law that says that?
There's no law that stops you guys. You guys can take a position. There's not it's not a law, it's advice you're getting from me. Mr. Baumann hasn't asked my advice, but since you brought it up, I'll say is that he should stay neutral as well.
Because there are, in other cases, Maxatawny Township had a supervisor candidate 2 years ago that ran on a platform of, he was against the warehouse in Maxatawny, he got elected. And he's gonna be voting apparently on the case because the citizens group prevailed in Hamilton Court and it was remanded back to Maxatawny Township on a couple of issues. He's gonna be voting on it.
Well, he's potentially voting on it, but again, the applicants could fight his ability to vote on it if he came out publicly against it.
After he became a supervisor.
Correct.
Well, now, I'm sure he didn't come out on it once he was sworn in
Oh, no.
as a supervisor. I'm talking, this is what he did as a campaign.
So that could come back to haunt him.
So my question is, you said numerous of times this is a political vendetta. Well, I'm here to tell you, I've been a resident of Maidencreek for 13 years, and I probably don't know anybody in this room. It's nothing political. It's ethics, doing something right and doing something wrong. And after hearing what Mr. Frank had just posted there, I'm going to look up on this a little bit more, and that will determine my vote. You work for the residents of Maidencreek Township. So, you know politics? I don't care about political backgrounds. I don't know who's going to do what for this community. Because I'm going to be part of the community like Mr. Josh Schmeck is, and that's what we win, I think. It's time for all this bullshit.
I agree. I totally agree with you, and that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years as a township supervisor. I'm going to address another issue that he brought up, and that had to do with the fact that he did not submit an ethics form prior to being sworn in as a township supervisor in 2022. That is a direct violation of this right now.
It's our turn to speak.
But you're bringing up ethics. I'm addressing some of the things you're talking about, and this is what it is.
Do you have a 2021 ethics statement for Mr. Mack? Yes. Okay.
A year after the fact that he was sworn in. He did not
No.
exist in the middle of April. You were required to file it before you took office,
He was
according to
required to
section
file it
15.2.
as he was running for office.
No, before he was appointed and sworn in for office, last year in 2022, I can read you, section 15.2.
Who's political?
So you were aware of this,
We
right?
don't want the political.
That makes you a conspirator.
No, I found out about it
We all
this
put it in
year.
the trash.
He was the one that was
But
sworn in.
you didn't tell him, did you?
No, I gave
Our
You had to send it out and mail
Our
it.
solicitor is responsible
That's
for telling me
conspiracy.
to make sure that we have
You
this. I
conspired.
didn't even know about this. I got elected before. This was an appointment, and this is what the law says on that.
You're making it political. Why don't you let the people speak?
This is all political, sitting right here for the past 10 minutes.
Why don't
Right
the
here,
people speak?
right here.
Let this man speak. Go ahead.
The dam wasn't political. Or maybe it was political because you used your political position to get power.
You know what? That's not true. We're talking about township infrastructure.
Did you ask
that
us
we
to
needed
do-
repair.
Did you ask us to spend that money?
Repair. And it's a minor repair, and then we find out.
$8,000
Whose
is minor?
property did
Well,
it
when she
benefit?
owes
It didn't
1.3 million, it
benefit.
is
But
minor.
It's a township street at that point. It's township
I
infrastructure.
want my money back.
So we could turn.
I
want you to pay us
talk to
back.
these guys about, you know, all the other work that
Can
we're
I
doing,
have
like
your
pickleball courts.
I just wanna know what
Yeah, what's
county
wrong with that?
residents
That's
against.
That's a low order. Let her speak.
I'm gonna warn them.
My name's Donna. I've lived in this township for almost 70 years. I've come to more meetings than I would say some of you residents have lived here in the township. My opinion is I have never seen so much unrest with the residents, with supervisors, until Heidi got this office. We've had all these other issues. I'm sorry, this township does not deserve that. And I would vote for Eric and Josh. They're part of the community. I want someone that would stand up for me, not try to take control and do things her way. I'm sorry,
This is
that's my
outside the
personal
scope of what we
opinion.
have going on.
Okay,
I agree.
what we've got to do is we've got to limit the political aspect of this. And I'm sorry, I know this is a heated conversation, and I don't want to act outside the law that allows us to operate our meetings. We are not supposed to be political in these meetings. We are not. That's not what the whole idea of this is. The whole idea of this was in response to many complaints that were made vocal to myself and several other people to find out what happened. I found out what happened. My report is to you tonight. Do I have a total expense on what cost to do that dam project? No, I do not. But we're gonna forward it to another agency because we're too involved in it. We're gonna let them make a decision and tell us, listen, I suggest you do this, or I suggest you do that, and let it go from there. I can't tell you what's gonna happen. We'll have an answer back from those organizations probably by the end of the year. Yes?
When
Josh,
you
you're
get the
doing a great job.
responses from
So
those
easy.
other areas, will this also be sent to the district attorney?
If they suggest it does,
Thank you.
Can we bring it before the district attorney ourselves?
I would not at this point. I would wait and see what the State Association of Township Supervisors, who is very on top of the laws, and so is the Ethics Commission. So they'll tell us, listen, you need to make some changes in how you do things so that this follows a certain procedure and doesn't happen again. This was a unique, we never ran into this before. We never ran into it
She
before.
has a board.
So we're dealing with it now, and we don't want it to happen again.
And we're dealing with a political issue, because you've personally endorsed both Josh Mack and Eric Baum for township supervisor. So it's all on the issue right now.
I'm gonna ask Eric.
That's an individual prerogative.
No, he's done it as,
I have a question
he's
for
sitting
you.
here on this board
That's
endorsing
your
two
opinion.
candidates who are running against
That's
me,
your
that makes it a
You
political
didn't
issue.
endorse us here, though.
I have a question
No, I
for
don't
our
want to.
solicitor, if not, I can have the floor here. So, second-class township code, section 907, surcharge by the auditors. The board of auditors shall surcharge any elected or appointed officer for amount of any loss to the township caused in whole or in part by the officer's act or omission in violation of the law or beyond scope of officer's authority. Can this get pursued?
I think, again, what Dave said, wait to see what these two agencies say. They may call it miscommunication, and if they hold that way, I would tell you no. If they hold that violations were made, then potentially yes.
And again, for the record, you
I
did
don't
not
need to- I
file
don't
your
need to
ethics
hear it.
statements.
I don't need to
No,
hear
you
it.
have the
This
floor,
doesn't
and
have
now I
anything to
have
do
the
with that
floor.
thing. This has to do with the
So,
low head
again,
dam.
the penalties of you not
Okay, do I have a
filing
motion
I
for
don't
is a
agree.
adjournment?
misdemeanor,
I make
and
the
shall
motion.
not eviction be a fine of
Second.
$1,000.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you folks for coming.